Part 1. The Land of the Vistula, Poland's Geography and Ancient Tribes. Poland's story begins not with kings or crowns, but with its land, a vast plain stretching across the heart of Europe. From the Baltic Sea in the north, where waves crash against sandy shores, to the Carpathian Mountains in the south, where mist curls through valleys and pine forests, this land has always been a crossroads. The Vistula River, long and winding, carried trade and travelers through the heart of the land. On its banks, fishermen cast their nets, and merchants brought salt, amber, and furs. To the west, oak forests spread like endless seas of green. To the east, marshes and wide plains opened the way to distant steppes. In this place lived many tribes. The Slavs, ancestors of the Poles, built wooden villages with palisades and hearth fires. Their world was one of sacred groves where oaks whispered with the voices of gods, and rivers were thought to carry spirits. The Slavic pantheon honored Perun, the thunderer, and Veles, the lord of cattle and the underworld. Foreigners, too, passed through, Celts, Goths, and Avars, leaving traces in tools, weapons, and legends. Yet it was the Slavs who stayed, farming the land, worshipping their gods, and slowly binding together into tribes that would one day become a nation. Poland was not yet born, but its land was ready, a land of rivers and forests, of crossroads and borders, waiting for the story of its people to begin. Part 2. The Piast Beginnings, Mieszko I and the Baptism of Poland. In the 10th century, among the tribes of the Vistula and the Warta, one clan rose above the rest, the Piasts. Their leader, Mieszko I, ruled with ambition and cunning. His warriors, armed with spears and shields, expanded his domain, uniting the scattered tribes into the beginnings of a state. Yet power alone could not secure his land. To the west, the German emperors pressed for conquest. To the north, pagan tribes raided. To the south, Bohemians watched with suspicion. Mieszko knew Poland needed more than warriors. It needed allies. In 966, Mieszko made a fateful choice. He accepted Christianity. By marrying a Bohemian princess, Dobrava, and being baptized, Mieszko aligned Poland with Latin Christendom. The rivers that once carried pagan offerings now echoed with church bells, and wooden temples gave way to stone churches. This moment, the baptism of Poland, is remembered as the birth of the Polish nation. It gave Poland legitimacy among Christian states and tied its fate to Europe. Mieszko's decision was more than faith. It was strategy, and it placed Poland on the map of history. Part 3. Bolesław the Brave, Poland's first king. Mieszko's son, Bolesław I Chrobry, known as the Brave, inherited his father's ambition. Unlike Mieszko, he did not only seek survival, he sought greatness. Bolesław expanded Poland's borders with fire and sword. His armies marched into Bohemia, captured Kiev, and clashed with the Holy Roman Empire. He welcomed missionaries, including Saint Adalbert of Prague, whose martyrdom in Prussia brought both sorrow and prestige. In the year 1025, Bolesław crowned himself as Poland's first king. The crown, heavy with gold and jewels, was more than a symbol. It declared that Poland was not just a cluster of tribes, nor merely a duchy under the shadow of emperors, but a kingdom in its own right. Chroniclers wrote of Bolesław as bold and proud, a ruler who rewarded his warriors with treasure and punished enemies with iron. His reign was a glimpse of what Poland could be, powerful, respected, and united under a crown. Part 4. Fragmentation, Dukes and Divided Lands. But unity was fragile. After Bolesław's death, quarrels among his heirs shattered the kingdom. Lands were divided into duchies, Kraków, Silesia, Masovia, and others. Each duke built his own court, raised his own armies, and schemed against his brothers. For 2 centuries, Poland remained fractured. While towns like Kraków and Gniezno grew in wealth, the land lacked a strong king. Rival lords called on Germans, Czechs, or Hungarians for aid, opening the door to foreign influence. Yet in this age of division, Poland also matured. Towns gained rights, merchants settled, and German colonists brought new farming methods. The Magdeburg laws gave cities self-rule, and cathedrals rose over marketplaces. Though fragmented, Poland's spirit endured, waiting for the day when unity would return. Part 5. The Mongol Invasions, Fire from the East. In the 13th century, a storm came from the east. The Mongols, horsemen of the steppe, swept across Europe. In 1241, they descended on Poland, their arrows darkening the sky. At Legnica, Duke Henry the Pious led his knights against them. Banners fluttered, lances lowered, but the Mongols were swift and merciless. Henry was slain, and his army crushed. Cities burned, villages vanished, and terror spread. Though the Mongols soon withdrew, the memory lingered. Poland had faced the fury of the steppe and survived, scarred but unbroken. The lesson was clear. Divided, Poland was vulnerable. Only unity could withstand the storms of history.
Part 6. The Rise of Kraków, a Capital of Kings. As Poland emerged from the chaos of fragmentation, a new city rose to prominence. Kraków, nestled on the banks of the Vistula, crowned by the hill of Wawel, it became the beating heart of the kingdom. Stone walls encircled its markets. Merchants from Germany, Hungary, and beyond sold cloth, salt, and spices. The Wieliczka salt mine, nearby, filled royal treasuries with white gold. On Wawel Hill, a mighty cathedral stood beside the royal castle, symbols of both crown and faith. By the 14th century, Kraków was not just a city, but a symbol. Here kings were crowned and buried. Here scholars gathered at the Jagiellonian University, founded in 1364 by King Casimir the Great. Its lecture halls echoed with the voices of philosophers, astronomers, and future leaders. Legends surrounded Kraków too. The tale of the Wawel dragon, slain by a clever shoemaker with a lamb stuffed with sulfur, was told to children beside firelight. The dragon's cave beneath the castle still whispered of mystery. Kraków was more than stone and trade. It was the heart of Poland's identity, a place where history and myth intertwined. Part 7. The Jagiellonian Union, Poland and Lithuania united. In 1386, a fateful marriage changed Poland forever. Queen Jadwiga of Poland wed Jogaila, Grand Duke of Lithuania, who took the name Władysław II Jagiello. With their union, Poland and Lithuania became one of the largest realms in Europe, stretching from the Baltic to the Black Sea. This Polish-Lithuanian union brought together knights and steppe riders, Catholics and pagans, merchants and peasants under a single crown. Lithuania accepted Christianity, while Poland gained vast new lands. Together they faced threats from east and west. In 1410, at the Battle of Grunwald, Polish and Lithuanian forces crushed the Teutonic Knights, the crusading order that had long sought to dominate the Baltic. Chroniclers describe banners waving, the thunder of hooves, and the knights' white cloaks trampled in the mud. The Jagiellonian dynasty ruled for centuries, presiding over a realm where Krakow's scholars debated astronomy, where Gothic churches rose in Vilnius, and where nobles gathered under the banner of shared liberty. Part 8. The Golden Age: Nobles, Cities, and the Renaissance. The 16th century was Poland's golden age. Wealth flowed from trade routes that crossed its plains, from the grain carried down the Vistula to Gdansk, where ships sailed to the Baltic and beyond. The nobility, or szlachta, dominated politics through the Sejm, Poland's parliament. They prided themselves on their golden liberty, the right to elect kings, veto laws, and guard their privileges. Cities flourished, their squares lined with Renaissance houses, their churches adorned with art and music. Krakow became a center of humanist learning, where scholars debated the stars. Nicolaus Copernicus, a Polish astronomer, proposed that the Earth moved around the sun, a daring idea that changed the world. In this era, Poland was known as a land of tolerance, where Catholics, Protestants, Jews, and Orthodox Christians lived side by side. The Golden Age was not only about wealth, but about a vision of a diverse and vibrant society. Part 9. The Winged Hussars: Victories on the Battlefield. Among Poland's proudest symbols were its warriors, the Winged Hussars. Dressed in shining armor, with great wings of wood and feathers rising from their backs, they thundered into battle like angels of war. At the Battle of Kliskin in 1610, a few thousand hussars shattered a Russian army many times their size. At Vienna in 1683, they charged down the slopes to break the Ottoman siege, saving Europe's heart from conquest. Chroniclers wrote of their speed, their discipline, and the terror they inspired. Their lances lowered, their banners fluttered, and their wings roared like a storm. They were more than soldiers. They were legends, the living embodiment of Poland's strength. But even in this golden age, storms brewed. The ideas of the Reformation spread into Poland. Lutherans preached in cities, Calvinists gathered in noble estates, and the Polish brethren sought new visions of faith. Poland became one of Europe's most religiously diverse lands. For a time, tolerance reigned, rare in an age of fire and war. The Warsaw Confederation of 1573 guaranteed freedom of worship, a beacon of peace. Yet the Catholic Church struck back with the Counter-Reformation. Jesuit schools rose, Baroque churches dazzled with gold and marble, and faith once more bound the kingdom tightly to Rome. The debates of pulpit and parliament echoed across the land, shaping not only religion, but identity. Poland's soul was tested. Could liberty survive division, or would faith become a battlefield?
Part 11. The Deluge: War with Sweden and Ruin. In the mid-17th century, Poland faced its darkest hour. From the north came the armies of Sweden, fierce and relentless, pouring into the Commonwealth in what Poles would remember as the Deluge. Cities burned, villages were plundered, even Krakow and Warsaw fell. Churches were looted, treasures stolen, and people scattered before the invaders. Chroniclers wrote of whole provinces reduced to ash, of famines stalking the land. Yet amid the ruin, resistance rose. In Jasna Góra, a monastery at Częstochowa, monks and soldiers held the fortress against Swedish cannon fire. Their defense became legend, a symbol of faith and defiance. Though Sweden eventually withdrew, the scars remained. Fields lay barren, the treasury empty, and the Commonwealth weakened. The deluge was more than war. It was a wound that would bleed for generations. Part 12. Neighbors at the Gates. Wars with the Ottomans, Cossacks, and Muscovy. While Poland struggled to recover, enemies pressed from every side. To the east, Cossack uprisings shook Ukraine, their cries for freedom mingling with fire and rebellion. To the north and east, Muscovy grew in power, challenging Poland for dominance. And to the south, the Ottoman Empire loomed. Armies clashed on the steppes and in the shadow of fortresses. In 1673, at the Battle of Kotin, Polish forces under Hetman Jan Sobieski crushed the Ottomans, lifting hopes of recovery. Sobieski himself rose to the throne as King John III Sobieski, remembered most of all for 1683, when he led the winged hussars in their legendary charge at Vienna, breaking the Ottoman siege and saving Christendom's heart. For a moment Poland shone again, its king hailed as a savior of Europe. But its enemies circled still, patient and hungry. Part 14. The Decline of the Commonwealth, Liberum Veto, and Lost Power. Despite great victories, Poland's system of government carried seeds of weakness. The nobility guarded their golden liberty jealously, and in the Sejm, even one noble could veto laws with a single word, "Nie pozwalam," I do not allow. This liberum veto paralyzed decisions. Reforms stalled, armies weakened, and kings were bound by noble privilege. Foreign powers bribed nobles to block reforms, turning Poland's liberty into its undoing. While Prussia, Austria, and Russia grew stronger, Poland remained trapped in arguments and divisions. The dream of a great commonwealth faded into frustration. The land of kings and hussars became a pawn on the chessboard of Europe. Part 15. The Partitions. Russia, Prussia, and Austria divide Poland. In the late 18th century, Poland faced its final tragedy. Surrounded by powerful neighbors, Russia, Prussia, and Austria, it stood weak and divided. In 1772, the first partition carved away vast territories. Reformers tried to save the nation, writing the Constitution of May 3, 1791, one of the first in the world, a bold attempt to renew Poland's strength. But it was too late. In 1793, a second partition followed, and in 1795, after uprisings failed and armies collapsed, the third partition erased Poland from the map. For more than a century, there would be no Polish state, its lands swallowed by empires, its people ruled by others. But in hearts and songs, Poland lived still. From the Piasts to the Jagiellonians, from golden liberty to tragic loss, Poland's tale was one of brilliance and endurance, of unity and division, of pride and sorrow, and always beneath it all, the unbreakable will of a people to endure.